Much for tuning in. This one is short, but I promise you sweet. I previously interviewed Michael Warby, who is an expert on education, and we discussed the weird things that are happening in our education system. A dry subject, but the interview did quite well. Michael is also a humanist atheist, and longtime viewers know that I'm an unashamed Catholic, a poor one, but one nevertheless. This short is not in the interview that we released because it's not specifically about education. I want to keep this subjects separately. He's an expert. He's a really, really interesting guy and has a very, very interesting take. He's also somewhat of an expert on Rome and the medieval period. So he has a really perspective. He's not someone who doesn't know about history. We discussed the woke phenomenon, its relationship with Christianity, and where Western values come from. Now, I loved this conversation, and I know you will too. It's short at only 14 minutes. But hey, enough from me. Let's hear from Michael. Lee, we're kind of like, and all that's doing too really is reiterating the fact that we're all daughters of Adam and sons of Eve. That's just bringing that together and a reminder that we really are all related. And my understanding from mitochondrial DNA is that's true. It's true. Like even the
Oh yeah,
yeah, it's true. There really was an Eve. Like I'm not suggesting she lived 6,000 years ago in the Middle East. That's not what I'm contending. Like so you know, I want to say that to my
yeah.
full-on
And
atheist
she
friends. But
wasn't
sorry,
she wasn't solitary. There are other humans around at the time. She wasn't the only human. She wasn't the only
he,
female human.
well,
But we're all
but
one lineage going back.
that brings
Yes.
in what is human. And so see, here's the thing, and this is why reactionaries like me see no contradiction between. I'm not a reactionary, actually. This is actually pretty normal Catholic theology. I see no contradiction between Genesis and Darwinianism, especially in here. Like, if you understand, and this is how I explain this to someone who was like, okay, so who are they breeding with? They must have all been inbred. The issue comes down between how we're defining human beings. So around that time, like humans have been humans as we recognize them for what, about 200,000 years, give or take, depending on who you kind of like
Well,
speak to.
the current thinking about Homo sapiens is our species is about 300,000 years old.
Yeah, two, 300,000 years. I mean,
yeah, that it keeps getting extended further back. 200,000 was the position some time ago. It's now been expanded back to about 300,000, maybe approaching 400,000. It's a bit because it's a process of evolution, so there's not suddenly.
There's not. It's like okay, the Devonians stop here. Like that's not the way. That's not the way it works. And in fact, like if you. Well, yeah, anyway, yeah. So yes, I agree with that. But the issue is what's defining, and I don't want to sound like Peter Singer here, but then it becomes what defines human beings. And so what Genesis is trying to tell us is the first conscious human being was a female, from whom we are all related from. So she was the first conscious human being. It's not that there weren't other Homo sapiens around her that were biologically the same. But there was one individual that had what we now describe and understand as consciousness, the knowledge of good and evil, and all of these things. And then she spread that, like she gave that, she gifted it to a man. It's like, there is this thing. And he's like, oh, that retard's eyes opened. And their children got all that. And so again, so when I'm discussing this with people, it's like, so who were they breeding off when they got off the ark? And who were they breeding before that? It's not that there weren't biological humans before that. That's not what that story is telling us. That's a story about the evolution of, evolution of consciousness, about the appearance and spread of consciousness, in a pre-existing biological kind of like format. And that's the way that's supposed to be interpreted. Like, it's not a forensic description, because I'm an ex-cop. So one thing I really understand is forensic descriptions. And when I'm explaining this to atheists, I'm going to go, look, I get you're a materialist, okay? I get that. But first, what you got to understand is, if you read the Bible forensically, like yeah, it's a joke. It's just funny. But it was not there giving a forensic description. It was just giving, you know, a symbolic description of meaning. So that's kind of like, you know, that's what it's trying to tell you, the point.
Yeah. It's interesting the way that Brett Weinstein and Heather Heying, who are very much evolutionary biologists,
Yeah.
have resuscitated St. Augustine's understanding of biblical and scriptural exegesis.
Yep.
So what Augustine said is, if it's not literally true, scriptures are metaphorically true.
Mm.
His point being standard Christian thing, which is the world is the direct creation of God.
Mm.
Scripture is the indirect creation of God. Therefore, in any clash between the world, the direct creation of God, and Scripture, the indirect creation of God, world wins, which means that Scripture, if it's not literally true, forensically true, it's metaphorically true, right? It's telling you something that's not literally true, but nevertheless has a truth embedded in it. And that, talking about Eve as the origin of consciousness, right? Or a certain sense of consciousness, is applying that notion of metaphorical truth. Now,
it's not metaphorical. See, and here's where we Christians get pissed off with that. It's like, no, we are not speaking in metaphors. That's not what we're saying. Like, it's not the way, and it comes down to, and God, I don't want to sound like Chomsky here, but it's like, it's the way you tell the story. Okay. So, you know, I spent 30 years taking statements from people about trying to describe events. So, and like, I was gaining forensic descriptions of things. It's like, you know, did this person hit this person? You know, did this kind of happen? But sometimes you would take statements from people who were at the same event and you go, like, is that the same? Like, were you there? And you knew they were, because you could see them on film and all that kind of stuff. And everyone else has said that they're there. And they were telling the truth, like they weren't. But what they were doing was they were telling it from their experience. And I don't mean, and again, I'm not, for complete clarity, I am not talking about the woke kind of like, well, this is my truth. Like, this is not an appeal to that. And the way people experience stuff, though, and it gave me this insight there, is through meaning. And what I mean by that is, like, they're trying to tell you the point. So when someone tells you how they experience something, it's like, it's what it. This is the point that I got from it. This is what matters. Okay, all that other crap kind of stuff, it's just external. It's like, you know, what color.
I don't think you're actually.
You know,
I don't think you're actually disagreeing with Augustine. I think there's an issue with. He doesn't think it's false. He just thinks it's providing deeper meaning. That's
no, I get that. It's when I talk, because, you know, when I speak in English to people, and they start using the word metaphor, I'm like, no, like it's not metaphorical. Like, you know, using the strictest sense of, you know, either simile or metaphor. Yeah. That's not what we mean when we say that. It's a description of meaning. It's a description of experience. Yes. It's like how human beings experience it. And another way of articulating this is like, I mean, you just see me drinking water out of my jar here. It's like, okay, I accept that this is H2O. I know it's H2O, but when I go like this, I don't experience H2O. What I experience is refreshment. What I experience is being brought alive. What I experience is all these sorts of things. So when you see in the Bible and stuff like that, it talks about living water and stuff like that. It doesn't mean H2O that is imbued with spirit. That's not what it means. It means that this is how the experience and the meaning of it. And it's because too, like, you know, and this is very tangential, and I do want to get medieval, I swear to God, because I'm so keen on discussing it. But it's like, it's because, and the church has done, and especially, I don't mean any disrespect to them, but especially the evangelicals, because we kind of let them, and I mean the Catholic Church, and modern society, we let them define Christianity. Because they were always trying to say, you know, these things are literally, and when they say literally, and look, mind you, when I use the word, and again, I don't want to sound like Chomsky here, but like when I say the word literally, I have a very different meaning to what they mean. Because again, they say literally, what they mean is forensically true. And something can be literally true. Like, I don't think Dostoevsky's works are literally true. Sorry, I don't think Dostoevsky's works are forensically true, but literary, in the literary sense, because they're showing us deep meanings and stuff like that, well, they're true. So again, look, I know that's a bit, so it's we let these weirdo evangelicals like who are running around in Turkey looking for bits of a broken boat. Like, what the fuck, idiots? You've kind of missed the point. We gave them the high ground.
Watson Gusting was basically saying is, no, you don't have to believe that Joshua stopped the sun in the sky.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what he's getting at. Okay. So there's an interesting evolutionary take on that Hebrahim and Brett Weinstein have come up with, and of course they're not believers, but their point is, look, if religion expresses things that if you follow that, it's going to be good for your evolutionary prospects as a group in a society, then that's being selected for, right? That's being selected for because it works for people.
Yep.
They're not trying to be, they're not Christians, and they're not, trying to say that the Catholic Church is full of truth. What they're saying is, but it works for people, and you've got to respect the fact that it works for people. And of course, there are many people like famously missionary Dawkins, who are very disturbed by what happens when Christianity retreats and what gets pushed into its place. I've come up with a very simple, straightforward definition of decadence, which is decadence is when the original animating ideas of the sacred retreat out of a civilization. And Roman civilization is not the same as Christian civilization. It's very clear. I mean, Christian civilization wouldn't have created the gladiators, for example.
No way.
No, in fact, the Christianization of the empire is why the gladiatorial battle games go away. When Constantine builds his capital, he builds the hippodrome for chariot races. He doesn't build anywhere for gladiatorial games. There's no equivalent of the Colosseum, and that's clearly a difference in a profound difference in moral perspective. And we know it matters because we got conversion reports where people thought that was fine because that was what they were raised in, become Christian, and then are completely repelled by it. So we know there's a genuine shift in moral perspective there. But of course, what's part of what's going on in the West world at the moment is with the retreat of Christianity and the retreat of those animating notions of the sacred, other things are moving into that space, and some of those things are extremely toxic and extremely nasty. And a big part of the problem is their disrespect for truth.
Yeah, totally. But again, I don't want to sound like Pilate, but what is truth there? I mean, that's another discussion itself. But it's no coincidence that this woke movement kind of resembles a weird, distorted form of evangelical Christianity.
It absolutely does.
It totally does.
Yeah.
Like when I was watching the Black Lives Matter marches here, like being a Catholic, these people were like walking along, they were chanting, they would stop, they would kneel, they would get up, they would walk. And, there's a lot of people now that can't even open an email without recognizing the traditional owners. Like, it's like, and again, like when at my high school, like we didn't start a class without saying a quick prayer. It's like, so if you're a Catholic and you're used to these patterns of ritual, of what ritual is and what it means, when you look at that and go, oh, so you atheist guys have given that up, eh? Mm-hmm. So you kind of like, you see yourself as, okay. Okay, you keep on telling yourself that there's no such thing as the sacred, that you've transcended that kind of stuff. No, you haven't. No, you haven't.
No. So their imagined future is their divinity, the source of authority from which there's no regular feedback.
Yeah.
And their notion of the sacred is just something you're not willing to trade off against.
Yeah.
Right? Yes. The mundane is things you are willing to trade off against. The sacred is what you're not willing to trade off against, except perhaps within the realm of the sacred, right? And there's a whole lot of things that they obviously think can't be traded off against, that are polluted by bringing in mundane or profane. And they've got a sense of heresy, and they've got a sense of apostasy, and they've got a sense of original sin, and away they go. Yes, the quasi-religious aspect of it, aping religious patterns, as many people have pointed out, is absolutely there. And yes, the evangelical Christian New England Puritanism very much secularized and transmuted.
100%.
Yes.
100%. So even a good atheist humanist and a reactionary Catholic can agree on something. I find reassuring. What I really quickly, just to make a couple of quick comments, what I wanted to sort of say to him, it's not metaphorical. It's not it's not metaphor or simile. It's actually symbolic. And what that means is getting a level of truth at every type of description. But I found that conversation great, because what it means is that we can, secular atheists like him and religious people like me have more in common than we don't. Because fundamentally what Christianity is at its heart is a search for truth. And that brilliant man is also seeking the truth. Thank you so much. I swear to God, I will put the full unadulterated interview up at some time in the future. It's a long one, and it just kind of like takes me a while. I've got so much editing to do. But I'll see you all next week. Really appreciate your support. Like, share, do all that kind of stuff, and take it easy.